a foresight to what is happening now for them to have printed more and made more cash available as to the initial narrative that commercial banks were the ones hoarding the cash. So there's a conversation going on now that, who exactly is responsible for what is happening now. We had a conversation some 2 weeks ago, and now we're looking at maybe the CBN didn't provide enough, and also the fact that the Mint, that is, the agency or the ministry or the office that's, responsible for printing Naira, is saying that they do not have the capacity to print what the CBN is asking for, meaning that the CBN may have to go outside the country to print new notes. And going outside the country, there's also the information that where they want to print from, they put them on a waiting list, and the waiting list could take months, meaning that we may not have access to new notes in a very long while. So what is the short-term solution? That's another thing that was a trending conversation over the weekend, as the Mint saying that they initially only printed 500 billion naira new notes. I don't know how that was supposed to go round properly for over 200 million people with an economy that is purely cash transaction based. Okay, cash based. Let's put it that way. So that was a major one. Also, the CBN top officials are to meet today, and banks intend to cancel Saturday, Sunday operations as filling stations and traders continue to reject old notes despite the deadline extension. We also have the bank unions have threatened to down their tools if the attacks persist. You can't blame them. You have videos circulating on the internet of bank workers having to jump across fences to get to their homes, and also the fact that there are a lot of frustrated Nigerians out there looking for what exactly to do with all of the pent-up emotions that's running through them. Okay, so you can't really blame them. But then CBN top officials are to meet today. We'll see the outcome of that. Today is 13th of February. So by Wednesday, we will know the final outcome from the Supreme Court as regards the cash crunch issues. But then banks intending to cancel Saturday and Sunday operations. I mean, people paying in money and then they don't have access to money. So I guess that only makes sense to a certain extent. Also, major trending stories over the weekend. Hoodlums attack Osun Rep supporters. We also have Council of State tax CBN to print more notes or recirculate old ones. Maybe that is a short-term solution. We will get to find out. Anti-corruption group asked the president to fire the EFCC boss Bauer following sentence for contempt of court. That was months ago. But then what we have now is anti-corruption group is asking the president to give him the boot. Ipeazu absent as Atiku holds rally in Abia State. So that's still happening within the PDP. And Atiku support group calls for suspension and expulsion of Nyesom Wike. A lot still happening, a lot still to come as we get further closer to the general elections by February 25. Another major trending story over the weekend, of course, is the death of this young girl, in a very Chrisland once again, a very popular private school. Investigations are still ongoing, but then why exactly do you think that schools will prefer, the image over the health of a child that's put in your care? That's another thing that seems to be bewildering a lot of Nigerians at this time. So a lot of trending stories over the weekend. I just felt to update you even as we go into trending stories for today. But before then, good morning, Fuad.
Yeah, good morning, Sandra. How are you doing?
I don't know yet. I will let you know. I still don't have cash.
For the day you know, right? All right.
I don't know.
We'll be fine. We'll be fine eventually. I'm hopeful.
We're all hopeful. All right. But just before we move on, Ekiti State has also joined, the three other governors as regards, taking the federal government to court over the cash.
Kano did over the weekend. I think Kano did on Friday too. Kano also joined, so I think most states are going to join. So it's going to be interesting.
Yes, I can't wait for Wednesday. All right. Speaking of Kano State, the Labour Party governorship candidate in Kano State has joined the APC.
Sandra,
interesting.
You be giving money for doing a lot of things. My predictions.
Your prophecies are
you don't pay me for.
I don't know what to make of that story. You know,
that's so all you guys are just placeholders.
Well, I really don't know what to make of that particular story. But then, I mean, the Labour Party governorship candidate in Kano State has, has joined. Let me put it that way. Has joined the APC after final talks and having meetings with
a whole governorship candidate.
Yes, the governorship candidate. So you can imagine how many people he's going to drag along with him into. Okay.
In Kano State, a governorship candidate of
a major party.
Not.
Yes. Of a major party. Let's just leave it at that.
Yes.
All right. So and the interesting thing is why I had to drag my intro so long is because we don't have so much stories on the front pages. What we have is ad campaign. That's what we have on the major across the papers, actually, not just the Punch, the Nation, the Guardian.
Papers need money.
I mean, exactly. Can't blame them. All right. So, but then we have stories surrounding that. So I'll start with the Punch newspaper and the major headline: CAN probes alleged obese 2 billion naira legees. PCC claims blackmail. So, for what? You know about the story that Christian Association of Nigeria were reportedly is it rewarded now or? They were 2 billion was allegedly. So what we have now is CAN has come forward now to distance itself from the alleged 2 billion naira claim to have been given by the presidential candidate of the Labour Party, that's Peter Obi. And they also said they will probe the source of the petition in which the allegation was made, and the allegation allegedly was written by one Pastor Frank Onwumere, and it was dated December 15th, 2022, and was addressed to the CAN president. And the petitioner claimed that the 2 billion naira was shared among some mega churches, while other denominations were sidelined. So, but then Onwumere, whose name appeared on the petition as the author, denied knowledge of the petition when he was contacted on Sunday. So, but then regardless of this, the president of CAN, Archbishop Daniel Oko, has said that they are going to look into the matter. They're not going to, they did not receive any money, according to him, they didn't receive any money, but they are going to look into the matter. But the alleged petitioner now, denied knowledge of the petition, stressing that he had never had any meeting with Obi before. But then you wrote a letter, some 2 months or so ago, stating that some people collected money. So what is it? Could it be that some people just came together, collected some funds, and then using, CAN as, as a cover? Or what would you make of this particular scenario?
Well, if the person that is alleged to have written the letter is denying the letter, again, Sandra, we are in a period where a lot of this information will be thrown to the public. This is a period where propaganda is going to sell easily. I saw the letter. Somebody sent me a copy of the letter. One of our colleagues in the print medium sent me a copy of the letter, and I read it and I felt, well, the first question I asked him is that this person owned up to writing the letter, that the author of the letter
it was contacted,
was exactly. The source of the letter. I know it was typed, that's what I'm saying,
It's not handwritten, so exactly.
Not so. Then December 15, why is it just coming out now? Why is the letter just coming out now and all of that? So my first instinct was that, hey, politicians are it again, this is pure propaganda. So again, since the author has denied ever writing any letter, he can't say they are not aware of any money, and nobody seems to be claiming that indeed they got any money from anywhere. I think we just accept that this is just pure propaganda and move on with it. And I don't know why the papers, but again, it's news because again, 2 billion naira to CAN members, and again to the personality of Mr. Peter Obi, who is a major contender this year. I think that's why it's making the news. I just think it's just pure propaganda until it's otherwise proven that indeed that money was given to some people. So I think it's just again a lot of things will happen. More will come out, Sandra. More things like
but just as you have mentioned, probably or probably not. I mean, just some days ago, or some weeks ago, on February 6th, I don't know if you remember, the Obidati Media Office gave some information that, according to some intelligence that they gathered, that there was a design there's something in the works by the opposition to try to bring them down, and some people have tied this to that. Okay, but then
not impossible, Sandra. They may have their own intel. Yeah.
All right. More details on page 2 of the Punch newspaper. We can get all of the details there as regards Khan looking into the allegation of being paid 2 billion naira from the Obidati campaign. Okay. So moving on, still on the front page of the Punch newspaper, Naira crisis, governors fear recession. 4 more states join legal battle. So what we have is that more states have joined the legal battle against the federal government over the currency redesign policy of the CBN. So what we have now, we have, aside from the previous ones of Kaduna, Zamfara, and Kogi, yes. Apart from the previous ones of Kaduna, Kogi, and Zamfara states, what we have now is the Attorneys General of Ekiti, Bayelsa, Sokoto, and Rivers have also joined in as co-plaintiffs in the suit, filed by the government. And the states are opposing the February 10 deadline. What we have is that Ondo had earlier joined, Kano and Ondo, had also joined. And as it is now, following the application of this, remember the Supreme Court last Wednesday issued an ex parte order restraining the federal government and CBN from enforcing the February 10 deadline. Although there wasn't any effect, from that. We didn't really see if it was able to ease anything or make things any easier. As a matter of fact, some people insisted from some traders, some business people insisted on the February 10 deadline, so they stopped accepting the old notes. So I don't really know if the information was passed, properly, or if the announcement was passed properly, or whatnot. But then the federal government approached the Apex Court to vacate the order, although the Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, had mentioned that they will comply with the Supreme Court order. But what we have now is that more states are joining, and there is also the conversation that the CBN, with this policy, could be pushing the country into recession.
Well, Sandra, I want to agree with people who are already saying that this may be a CBN-induced recession that we're looking ahead of us. And I'll tell you why it's going to be a CBN-induced recession. If we're not careful, and if this is not quickly sorted out, small-scale businesses are going to begin to shut down. You're going to have people lose their jobs. The economy is going to be stifled because, again, whether we like it or not, we are still an economy that is heavily cash-dependent. And so if this is not sorted out, we may be inducing some form of recession, and that will be coming directly from this failed monetary policy of the CBN. That's on that part. Now, for the governors that have approached the Supreme Court, I think if you did their right, again, like I said the last time, we have a debate with the Supreme Court on February 15. That's a very important day in the life of the country.
Yes.
And of course, what is in contention as we speak, apart from the monetary policy itself, is the issue of jurisdiction, which the Attorney General is challenging. And I said the last time, Sandra, we have to be careful to deploy our institutions with the things we do, with the things we say. Whether we like it or not, the judiciary is still regarded as the last hope of the common man. And we must try to protect the sanctity of the judiciary. Because again, if we destroy everything, what then is left of the country? I've listened to senior advocates of Nigeria, I've listened to lawyers, I've listened to public commentators and analysts. And one thing I see is that everybody seems to be teaching sides based on their own emotional sentiments, political alliances, and some levels of hypocrisy. The reality is that the Supreme Court is still the highest court of the land, and we must just wait to see how they are going to handle this issue. Remember the last time also, Sandra, I said that, look, what the Supreme Court did by stopping the deadline of February 10th was not to look at the technicality of the issue majorly, but the issue of public interest. That, hey, everybody is there, let the status quo remain, keep the deadline, move it forward, and wait till when we are able to speak properly on this issue. But people are beginning to say, man, I think, yes, I agree that indeed we should sometimes put a spotlight on the activities of our judges, of our courts, all manner of injunctions and counter injunctions that we have. But hey, it is still the highest court of the land, and we must wait for February 15 when they speak properly on these people. And whatever they decide, Sandra, we have to abide by it. We have to accept it as a ruling of the Supreme Court and move on with it. We cannot destroy our court because of our emotional, political sentiments and all of that. Because again, that is the beauty of democracy. Whatever happens at the court will further deepen our democracy. We'll have more conversations about, and we'll get better with it.
All right, but the stories that we have now is that considering the sizable informal sector in the country, the amount of banknotes that was created, in the exchange so far implies that CBN actually underestimated the economy's actual cash needs. It's either that or they felt or they thought, they didn't have their data.
Sandra, the annoying thing is that, Sandra, the annoying thing is that at the level of the CBN, you want to ask the question, what data were they working with? What was the synergy with other agencies of government, parastatals and ministries that could probably share useful information for them to, grind out this policy properly? That's why I said, was it just an Emefiele policy without working with other people? Remember that immediately this policy was announced, the Minister of Finance said she was not even carried along, she was not aware about it. So you ask yourself, they underestimated what? Are they not working with data?
No. Hold on. That's not the CBN speaking. That was not the CBN.
Okay.
No. That was not from CBN. What the report is saying that probably the CBN may have underestimated the economy's the economy's cash needs. All right, the people who actually need the cash, or what exactly happens, or maybe the data that the CBN worked with was incomplete, just as you have mentioned. That's what the report is saying.
Sandra, the CBN at the appearance in the Council of State meeting also admitted to this, that they never projected for the challenges they are saying on this policy. He admitted to it. I'm talking about the CBN governor at the Council of State meeting. So he admitted to it. Yes, the report is saying this, but I'm sure they are even picking the idea from his appearance at the Council of State meeting. And that's why they have been told that, hey, go ahead and quickly print more notes, more new notes, and if you don't have the capacity to do that, let the old notes exist side by side with the new notes until when we're able to do the proper thing. And that's why I'm saying that what data was he using? Were they using? What were they thinking? What was the synergy with other ministries, and agencies to have been able to grind out this policy properly? And now people have died because people are not even thinking properly. It's unfortunate, Sandra.
All right. Well, as it is now, this whole the whole cash crunch issues are leading to the emergence of naira black markets. There's also severe food inflation, variable commodities prices, and all long queues, as well as crowds around ATMs and banking halls, and all of that. So with all of this putting them together, the country may be running at the risk of a CBN induced recession. And it is rather unfortunate. It has become necessary to make a distinction between the CBN Naira redesign policy and the aspirational policy of going cashless. Very important that we separate it, because both of which are mutually exclusive at this time. So it's important that we separate it. A redesign policy and the aspiration to go cashless. So you're changing the Naira and then at the same time also want to go cashless. So as it is now, there may be...
Go cashless is what?
So what we have now is
when
that...
technology to go cashless, Sandra?
What we have now is that currency confiscation, in the sense that The liquidity provided to the general public is grossly insufficient due to the restrictions placed on the amount that can be withdrawn, and also the fact that even the new notes in itself is not available. So it is considered that what the CBN is doing at present is a currency confiscation program, not the currency exchange policy.
No, it's not even currency. It's currency hijack. Currency kidnapping.
Well, more details on pages 2 and 44 of the Punch.
If I hijacked our currency, Zanga.
It's all right. Say currency confiscation. I just leave that at that. That's all we have on the from the headlines. From the front page of the Punch newspaper. Just 2 stories. Let's move on now to.
Really?
Yes. Well, there's all campaigns everywhere. Let's move on now to the front page of the Nation newspaper. That also has just one major headline, and it's above the masthead of the Nation, and that's Tinubu lists ways out of Naira crisis. Governors, CBN act now, and that is on page 3. Let's see what are the ways, because that's one question, or that's one question that has raised a lot of conversations over the weekend. What are the solutions to this particular issue? So what we have is that the All Progressive Congress presidential candidate Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu yesterday suggested a 6-point solution to the crisis that's been triggered by the Naira redesign policy. All right. So let's look through what he gave. 1, the CBN should announce that the old and new Naira notes will coexist as legal tender for the next 12 months. That's 1. 2, he advised the immediate suspension of associated charges on online transactions and bank transfers and payments via POS until the current crisis is fully resolved. And this cost should be considered a rollout expense by the CBN to incentivize the envisaged shift to alternative transaction channels. 3, mobilize all money deposit banks, payment platforms to show clear commitment and timelines on expanding their infrastructure and support services. 4, bring in fintech companies with capabilities into currency swap program for the next 90 days to help decongest the banking halls and ATMs. 5, the central bank and other relevant MDAs should form an interagency action committee for immediate oversight over the cash supply gaps from the Nigeria Security and Minting Company, that's the Mint, and deal with issues around capabilities and turnaround time to meet the needs of the informal sector and unbanked people. I'll take that again. The central bank and other relevant MDAs should form an interagency action committee for immediate oversight over the cash supply gaps from the Mint and deal with issues around capabilities and turnaround time to meet the needs of the informal sector and unbanked people. And 6, the CBN, National Orientation Agency, Minister of Information, states and local government areas with their relevant organs in both public and private sectors should commence a major public enlightenment and sensitization campaign to further educate and empower our people on the new Naira and cashless policy for better understanding and mainstream adoption. 6 points, hoping to bring immediate relief to Nigerians, and that is from the presidential candidate of the APC. So which do you agree with? Which do you think should be adopted immediately, or which do you think is far-fetched?
Sandra, I think I'll go with the 6.
Number 6.
The only one I want an adjustment to is the 12-month timeline that he gave to the spreading of the 2 notes, the old and the new note. I think
it's too long.
I think we can work with it. Yeah, I think it's too long.
Okay.
I think we can work with maybe 3 months, But again, the thing is this: even if we had 1 month to it now, the intention of the CBN ab initio on the idea of fighting vote buying as if that extension is granted now. Because again, I think the CBN, working with the president, had their own initial intentions for bringing up this policy. Now that has fallen flat in the face, I think they have to eat the humble pie, accept that the policy implementation was faulty. And if you look at all those big suggestions, I think those were even things that should have happened before the new notes were rolled out. Immediately the policy was announced, I think in October. All of these things that have been listed, it's two suggestions by the presidential candidate, were things that should have been done. We talked about even sensitization of the people in rural areas. Sandra, was it not about at the middle of January or towards the end of January?
Towards the end.
Sensitization started from the CBN.
Yes.
Yeah, towards the end of January. And so you ask yourself, and that's why, people were in rural areas were still wondering what exactly is the new note about. There's so much confusion and all of that. So again, we talk about synergy of agencies and parastatals. We talk about proper publicity and orientation of Nigerians. Then the ultimate one, Sandra, more notes should be made available. They need to print more notes.
Yeah,
yeah.
I apologize for cutting in. I wanted to say that, just from, as you mentioned, the National Council of States that met on Friday, that's where that's where the Mint came in. And the Mint, they're saying that they don't have the capacity to print all that billions and billions of naira that the CBN is asking for. So the CBN is saying, okay, and they spoke with companies in Germany and sought to help with printing of the naira outside of the country. And now they said that Nigeria has been put on a waiting list that could take months before they can attend to our cash needs. So if that's where your argument of wait, hold on, that's where your argument of synergy comes in. So you wanted to bring in new notes. You didn't have any conversation with the Mint, who is solely responsible for printing naira for Nigerians. You didn't carry okay, we are going to be making new notes. How much can you produce? How much can you print in a matter of time? All right, so that's where your argument also comes into play. Synergy amongst all the financial institutions in the country.
Yeah, Sandra, even beyond synergy, I'm also thinking that the CBN is an institution that should be working with data. What would have been the realistic needs of Nigeria in terms of cash transactions? I thought that they would have been able to get that information to know what they are dealing with and what they're supposed to do to have been able to avert the crisis that we have now. So that's why I said that, look, one would have thought that at least in the minimum, we have the accurate data to work with. They are thinking ahead, planning ahead, apart from even sensitizing Nigerians. Like we said, Sandra, I don't think any Nigerian is in the policy. It's just that Nigerians went to their bank,
yes.
They went to the place, and those were not available. Again, in a country that is still heavily dependent on cash for major transactions. Look, we can't go cashless overnight. Even the biggest economies of the world didn't go cashless overnight. It was a gradual thing. You continue to improve on technology. You continue to expand. Look at the telecommunication company, Sandra. In my area, they are still laying cables to improve on their facility and service provision to Nigerians. And that is even here in Lagos. Just imagine in the rural areas. So as we continue to expand on all frontiers in terms of technology, fintech ability, banking networks, and all of that, before people will begin to accept the cashless policy and just naturally flows with them. But the idea of trying to force it down the throat of Nigerians when the facilities are not available, when the technology is not available, for me, just shows lack of critical thinking or a deliberate attempt, like they said, to confiscate our money and identity and make us suffer needlessly. It's almost deliberate attempt to suffer Nigerians needlessly.
All right.
And look at the grandstanding standard from the CBN governor. He kept grandstanding on the deadline. We are not going to shift. And you ask yourself, were people not talking to him? Was he not even talking to experts? Was he not even working with other ministers and agencies and parastatals on the reality on ground? And so you ask yourself, what exactly is this CBN governor thinking about? What is his mission exactly on this issue? Just to suffer Nigerians?
Okay, it's okay. So, as regards this particular one, it's actually an interesting read. You can get all of the information. Tinubu listing ways out of the Naira crisis, and he gave six major ways that we can actually get out of it. Interesting. Announced an extension of the coexisting of both the old and the new notes for at least 12 months to be able to mop up easier, immediate suspension of charges on online transaction, mobilizing the DMBs, that's deposit money banks, to show clear commitments, also bringing in the fintech. That's another interesting part. Also interagency working together for immediate oversight over the cash supply gaps, and also the orientation of the general public as regards the policy and also the importance of the policy. Well, more details on page 3 of the Nation newspaper, and yes, more details on page 3 of the Nation's newspaper. You can get all of that. That's all that I have from the Nation for today. Now, moving on to the Guardian newspaper. You're listening to Trends in the Papers on 98.3 Mainland FM. We're looking through trending stories on the front pages of our dailies. And now we're on the Guardian newspaper. The major headline on the front page of the Guardian: Governors direct states to join suits against federal government over Naira swap. That is on page 3. We've already talked about this, but let's see what the Guardian has to report as regards this particular story. There are writers to that say Nigeria at risk of CBN-induced recession. Ekiti, Niger join 5 other states in suit at Supreme Court. CIBN, banks working to restore normalcy. Infrastructure dearth, technical challenges, obstacle to adoption of CBN withdrawal limits directive. PDP tells APC leaders and others, halt hoarding of new notes. We had that. Oh no, okay, not we, but the conversation as regards the politicizing of this policy was had yesterday on Political Roundtable, and I remember that Barrister Curtis said that it is 99% politicized and 1% policy, and that's I'm just talking as regards the PDP coming in now and telling APC leaders to stop the hoarding of the new notes. All right, but then according to
just a very funny frontal call, and you just laugh when the PDP tells the APC not to hoard Naira, when we know that when it comes to vote buying, everybody is involved. All parties are involved, as we have always seen in the past. Just want to play. I don't know what political points anybody thinks they're going to get from this, really. You think you're going to get any political points from the suffering of Nigerians? And you want to play politics with that?
All right. Well,
I don't know, really.
As regards the major reports, what we have now is that the NGF, that's Nigeria Governors Forum, have issued or directed the attorneys general of the 36 states to review the suit at the Supreme Court and look into it. And with this now, the case, what we have now is some other states coming in, and some other states also showing intentions or showing indications that they may actually come in, with Lagos also saying this is about true federalism, so it's something that they might consider. That's Lagos State also coming in now. Rivers State also said something similar, and so we may be having more states joining in before the next hearing of the Supreme Court by February 15. And whether or not it's going to have an impact on the case, the fact that you have at least a third or 2/3 of 36 states and the FCT coming together to be a part of this particular one, whether it will have an impact or not on the case in itself, we'll know. I will find out on Wednesday when the Supreme Court comes up again. All right, so that's that as regards that. More details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. We also have here Naira scarcity. Tinubu tax CBN on immediate relief for Nigerians. We just talked about that from the Nation, but on the Guardian, it's on page 4. So you can get more details as that. Can Obidati Media deny alleged 2 billion Naira presidential vote booster? And that is... Okay. And that is on page 4 of the Guardian newspaper.
We already talked about
yes, that. Yes, we already mentioned that. And finally, from the front page of the Guardian newspaper, don't pull down judiciary through criticism. Olanikwekun, Ubani, Amadi counsel Nigerians. And that's on page 3. And we also had the conversation yesterday
I like to talk more on that, Sandra, if you permit me.
Yes, of course. But I just wanted to, so that people can understand where, the context is coming from. So, the silent supremacy contest between advocates of technical justice and proponents of substantial justice in Nigeria Supreme Court is currently affecting this dispensation of justice in the Apex Court. Remember, we had the conversation, I think, on Friday, as regards technicality and, the good of the people.
Human interest.
Yes, human interest. Thank you. So the insistence by justices to uphold technicalities rather than pursuing the substance of the case has attracted public outcry, some of which are recent decisions by the Apex Court on pre-election matters involving APC and INEC. Meaning that, remember the court case of Ahmed Lawan and Machina. Yes, Machina, thank you. So with that, meaning with the Apex Court upholding the nomination of Ahmed Lawan over Machina, and also Akpabio, the Minister for Niger Delta, Senator Goodwill Akpabio, despite the fact that both of them actively participated in the presidential primary. So yes, we had that particular conversation and all of that. But what would you say now as regards technical justice and substantial justice?
Sandra, we have a dangerous path here. And when I say it's dangerous, is that, look, if we destroy the sanctity of the judiciary on the altar of politics, then what do we have left? What exactly do we have left? I understand. Look, there have been different positions, even from senior lawyers, on whether people can review, criticize, and talk about decisions of the Supreme Court or any court of law, really. That when judges make pronouncements and decisions, can it be reviewed, criticized? Yes, I think from what I've gotten, yes, decisions of the court can be reviewed, can be criticized, but without elements of bias. Because you can criticize to further deepen the justice system. You understand, to bring more critical thinking into decisions of the court and all of that. But you can also criticize with malicious intent to destroy the sanctity of the judiciary when criticism becomes very poisonous. Now, the issue is this, Sandra. As much as lawyers are saying that, we should not criticize the judiciary or the Supreme Court and all of that, I think even the court, too, have to help Nigerians not to begin to see things that confuse them. In one breath, they go with technicality. In another breath, they go with public interest. Sandra, I'll give you a list of cases that, as I speak to you, Nigerians are still wondering where did the Supreme Court get their judgment from. Look at the case of Lawan and Machina. Look at the case of Akpabio. As I speak to you, even the people of Imo State are still wondering how somebody that came fourth in an election became their governor as a result of the Supreme Court judgment. As I speak to you, I'm sure people in Rivers State still kept wondering how Rotimi Amechi became their governor without participating in the primaries of his party. You understand? So there are a lot of cases. But again, as we wonder with some of the decisions in the Supreme Court, we have to be careful to destroy that institution because it is still the hope, the last hope of the common man. So we have to continue to talk about these things. But again, I think the judiciary should also help us. The court should also help us with their pronouncements. Sandra, there's a dangerous part. I told you that, look, with the givers that we have now, and look at the case in Osun State. Again, the fact that, look, the Electoral Act was already passed without a lot of us reviewing it and understanding what is in that act. We are just beginning to understand it properly. After the general election, Sandra, the courts are going to be flooded with all manner of cases. And my fear, that we may begin to have governors, senators, House of Reps members, assembly members, that would eventually be elected as a result of Supreme Court pronouncements and judgments, not necessarily the mandate of the people. And that is the dangerous part that I see ahead of us going into these elections.
All right. Well, on the issue of which takes precedence between technicality and substance of a case, Amadi, who is a director of Abuja School of Social and Political Thought, said, "It depends on what the issue is. Technicality is important in law to lead us to substantive justice. Technicality should not take us away from clear justice. The Venerable Lord Denning once said that the picture of justice prostrate and technicality triumphant is a terrible one. Technicality should be the maiden and not the master of justice." I'll leave that at that. It's a very interesting and beautiful read. We've always had this conversation. I remember when the Lawan case came out and someone was asking when did they have the second primary. But then
well, just pure that Lawan case was purely judged on technicality, yes, not the substance of the case.
That's it. That's
just technicality.
But then look, the major part of this report is telling us that all the NBA. Yes, no, sorry. What we have now is that Chief Wole Olanipekun, the president of Body of Benchers in Nigeria, is saying that we should not criticize. We should not criticize the judiciary so much. I'm trying to get where exactly I got that from. I've lost it. All right, but then just we should not, downplay the importance of the judiciary with so much criticism. I think that's basically, I'm paraphrasing that now. But we can get more details on page 3. Yes, you can get more details on page 3 of the Guardian newspaper. It's an interactive read looking at using the Lawan and Akpabio cases as case studies. More details on page 3, and that's all we have from the Guardian newspaper. All right, and finally we'll look through Vanguard newspaper. It has more stories for us to talk about. The major headline: cash squeeze as rejection of old notes spreads, banks await fresh directives from CBN. And there are riders to that. POS operators defy CBN threat on charges. Association gives reasons. Naira black market booms as more bank branches close. Okada riders, petrol stations, others sell Naira. New note scarcity persists. We have made our recommendations, says Customers Association. That is on page 20 of Vanguard newspaper. As we all know what exactly is happening as regards the cash squeeze, but more interesting is the fact that banks are closing down across because they don't know what exactly they're supposed to do. Should they follow the Supreme Court order? Should they, but then should they go with the Supreme Court order? Should they go with the CBN? Should they not pay? Should they not pay? So that's that. But then they are waiting for fresh directives, I'm sure, even as the CBN is also waiting on the federal government, and the federal government in turn waiting on the Supreme Court February 15th by this week, Wednesday. More details on page 20.
Sandra, there's no waiting. What the court said, yes, we have a February 15th date, is that, look, we should go back to what we had before February 10th, which means the old and the new notes should still be the legal tender as we speak. That's the position now. So it's just for the CBN to give the direction, and I'm wondering why they have to wait till today. I guess they are missing today. I thought that the new that was done, they would have been directed to the banks. And then, of course, you need to tell them to pay these things.
All right, more details on page 20. Moving on now, we also have old notes deadline. Governors direct attorneys general to review suit at Supreme Court, which has brought about 5 more states joining in on that particular suit. That's on page 5. Also, we have here bandits kill DPO and 4 other policemen in Niger State. That is on page 6. Also, we have here CBN to court. Returning old notes will encourage vote buying and kidnapping. And that's on page 10 of Vanguard newspaper. Just very quickly, don't have so much time, but then very quickly, just look through what exactly we have in that particular report. The CBN challenged a suit by Social Rehabilitation, Grace and Supportive Initiative, SRG, before a federal high court in Akure, Ondo State, contending the move was to save Nigeria's democracy by checking vote buying during the presidential election. The plaintiffs are asking the court to compel the Apex Bank to extend the expiration, but then the CBN averred that the extension of the timeliness will jeopardize the fight against fraud, corruption, and criminal activities perpetrated with the use of the old currencies. More details on... Okay, yes. Well, they're arguing. It's a very interesting argument. More details on page... Sorry, what page is this? Yes.
How tenable is the argument, Sandra?
No, I'm talking about the argument. Not from the CBN. The interesting part is from the plaintiff.
Okay, all right.
You want me to read that so you can know what I mean by...
No. Yeah, you can read that. Okay, fine.
They're saying that while we know of a fact that the CBN has the right to denominate the naira, it has no right to erase the value acquired by individuals. That's what I read, and I said it's interesting. But you can get all of the details on page 10. I can't read everything. It's an interesting one for us to read, so we can look through the mind of the plaintiffs and why they went to court. All right, more details on page 10, as mentioned. Also, we have Naira redesign, stop economic chaos. NECA urges federal government. That's on page 8 of Vanguard newspaper. Interesting. Economic chaos. We also have here on the front page of Vanguard newspaper, above the masthead, federal government overwhelmed by insecurity and worsening economy. That's coming from Catholic bishops. Warn against do-or-die politics as general elections draw nearer. And that's on page 8. And finally, on the front page of Vanguard newspaper, above the masthead, is the story of the young girl who lost her life over the weekend. That's Whitney Adeniro, and the Lagos state government has shut down Chrisland School. The story is on page 6. Of just how many months ago we still had a conversation as regards Chrisland School, but here we are now. The Lagos state government has ordered the temporary closure of Chrisland School, the one located at Okwebi, Ikeja, following the death of a student of the school, Whitney Adeniro, and the order was contained in a statement by the State Commissioner for Education. Let's not forget, the story is that or the allegations or the stories that or the report is that Whitney was electrocuted, and they tried to what they could as regards the school. They took her to the sick bay, did what they could, but then on the school's position, they are saying the school is exonerating itself, explaining that the immediate response was to identify the nearest medical facility where the doctor on duty administered oxygen and every aid possible. But then the parents are saying that the school bus came to pick Whitney up in the morning for inter-house sports, and she was hale and hearty, with no underlying health conditions. But then on getting to the venue of the inter-house sports, the mother said she searched all over. She was searching for her child, and she couldn't find the child, only for her to see an ambulance hurriedly leaving the venue of the scene. But what is with schools not, contacting parents or guardians of children when something happens? And what is with schools, cherishing the image of the school over, the health or welfare of their students that has been kept in their care? You have just 1 minute. We're out of time, Fuad.
Yes, Sandra, lots of time. I'll just say this. I think my advice to the parents is to just charge the school to court. The criminal matter, if they suspect that something was hidden, there's this thing on criminal negligence. Yeah, if there's any foul play somewhere, if there's any criminal negligence, I think she has a right to go to court and demand justice. Yeah, so. But again, Chrisland, the last one, we didn't have any complete closure on that case.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's another one now from the same school. But I think, she can approach the court, to seek justice. As the mother and the parents of the child can actually go to court and seek justice. Well, if they suspect foul play somewhere.
And as soon as possible, what's that autopsy? Thank you. That's the word I was looking for. Thank you. Yes, autopsy. Yeah. Yes, as soon as possible, autopsy, because they said that according to the doctors that attended to the girl, it was cardiac arrest, and for a child who had no pre-existing heart condition or no pre-existing medical condition, how did a 12-year-old have a cardiac arrest. Well, unfortunately, we've run out of time, but then stay with us. We'll be back by 8:40 for Mainland Focus, where we'll open up the phone line for you to join in on the conversation that we will be introducing as the focus for this morning. You're listening to Mainland 98.3 FM.
Yeah, I know what this is.
98.3 Mainland FM.
Oceanport International, we are experts when it comes to travels and tours to all countries of choice. We do study visa, work visa and tour